Oh, that is right. Life is a highway. Welcome into the task force. I'm TV and radio's Dan Leach. Of course, the Kingpin, the great Dave Rieger, the 9-300 station bowling games. But the special guest, the pride of Penn State, they call it Chappie Valley. No one other than himself does. He's repping the shirt right now. You got a Detroit shirt on. It is my good friend, Dave's good friend, Detroit's good friend, Brian Chapman. B. Chap, I'm playing Life is a Highway because A, it's a great song, and B, life is a highway when it comes to you, what you do for a living as well as radio, and just how we've been on this great journey together for the last, 6-7 years, Brian?
Yeah, and right now I want to take that highway straight down I-80 to Beaver Stadium to see a packed, whiteout stadium. But, of course, that would be the last thing anyone would want to do in this coronavirus pandemic.
Not right now. Brian, and I'll bring this up before we get into everything here. And I'm not saying this to get a pat on the back, but it means a lot to me because I felt this way at the beginning. I remember it was July 4th. You'll have to fill me in on the year. I think I want to say 2014 when I found out you got hired. I got the info from Milliken to give you a call. I called you. You were a little weird, but that was the first time we ever talked. I'll never forget that because
Fake news.
How's that
Once again, we start off the show with Leach the Liar going fake news.
All right, here we go.
Not July 4th, and I know it was not July 4th
yes, it
because
was.
my first my first show was in June of 2014.
Well,
and
it was some
before
holiday.
my first show.
Oh, then it must be Memorial Day. Memorial Day. I'm sorry, but
no, because I hadn't been hired by then.
But I called you on a holiday. I was at my friend's house for a parade. I was in Huntington Woods. I remember walking the fence.
An American holiday.
And maybe it was a Jewish holiday. It was too much fun. But I do remember from that day, I fell in love with you as a person, but also lost my mind having to deal with you. You and I have been on the 2 to 6 a.m. show on the website for 97.1 for what now, 4 years? When's the last time you and I did a show together?
Let's see. That would be 2017. Yep.
Hey, I put that picture up when I posted our show for tonight.
Yeah, I saw.
Before, Dave, I want to give you a chance to send your love to the great B. Chapman. By the way, Dave has a new background now. He's got a ridiculous John Elway poster or, framed lithograph. It is pretty sweet. He spent a lot of time on that. But Dave, I know you've known B. Chap for a while. Brian, as I've always said, he's a great friend. He comes to all my birthday parties and different things that I do, and you've seen him there in a lot of those as well.
B. Chap, Dan Leach, and myself, we had a great game at Buffalo Wild Wings, the golf game, whatever that game is, Golden Tee, and that was probably the where I got to see a side of Brian Chapman that I had never seen before. It was a great side. It was a team up on Leach, who talked all kinds of trash, how he was winning through like 6 holes and then blew up and ended up losing. I ended up winning.
No, I think that I won.
And that was in the back nine.
And that was just a great evening. A lot of fun. I enjoy listening to. Sometimes I work the overnight shift at my job, and I would drive home and listen to Brian on the way home from WJR, coming north on the Lodge. So I enjoyed it when you guys were local until they decided, unfortunately, to get rid of it and go back to satellite to programming. But I enjoyed listening to Brian at night driving home.
I guess that were the breaks, unfortunately, during this period of time. And we'll get into, obviously, all that stuff. We got some lines to talk about. We got a Task Force Top 3 that we'll have some fun with. And we got a Dan Leach One-on-One starring Brian Chapman. Brian, I just wanted to check in with you. I mean, you and I have always had I think a special relationship. I really do. We give each other a lot of grief, but it's a lot of love. We've had a great chance to check in with each other over the last several weeks, and I just wanted you to let people know what you've been up to, how you've been dealing with this, obviously, self-quarantine and stay-at-home situation, and just how you're doing in general.
Yeah, well, I have not been dealing with the whole stay safe, stay home, and self-quarantine thing the same way that everybody else is because I'm sure that a lot of people know this, but they'll certainly know it now. But I've been driving for Uber for the last 5.5 years, ever since I started at 97.1. And with not being on the air, I'm basically a full-time Uber driver.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to continue making money. I have not lost any money or anything that since the pandemic came out. So that's a positive. I know everyone out there can't be as fortunate as I am. When the governor put out the first executive order, I wanted to make sure that I could drive. I assumed that I could, because I figured that transportation would be essential, because I know that I've driven so many hospital workers to work, and I've driven people to dialysis appointments. And if they don't have a dialysis appointment, they can't just go a week without that. They just die. So I was pleased to see that Uber drivers and other transportation drivers were allowed to be exempt from that. So I've been Ubering 7 days a week, making money. I really haven't been abiding by social distancing standards, because I drive a Toyota Camry, so people are not more than 6 feet away from me. But I'm able to talk to a lot of people and see how they're dealing with situations. Talking to people about how they're going about things in their job. Hearing stories from them about how they're dealing with. As a matter of fact, I'll give you guys one story quickly. You know how everyone now is concerned when they go out in public about somebody coughing, and if somebody coughs, everyone's like, "Whoa, that person have coronavirus." A guy got thrown off
a bus. I think it was Philly the other day for not wearing a mask and coughing or whatever.
So I picked up this guy at Henry Ford Hospital, and as a joke, when he got in my car, I said, "Hey, you don't have that coronavirus, do you?" And he said, "No, I ain't got that." And then we started talking about how when people cough in public, how people look. And he said, "Yeah, it was crazy. When I was in the hospital, I was in the waiting room, and I was sitting next to this old lady. And all of a sudden, she starts coughing. God. And I mean, really coughing. And I got up and was like, 'Oh, hey, well, come on, bitch, man, what's going on?' I was like, 'Wait a second. Did you just call that old woman a bitch?' And they said, 'Yeah, I called her a bitch. We're in the middle of a pandemic. You can't be going around coughing like that. Yeah, I called her a bitch.'" It's like, dang.
That's out of control.
He had no shame for calling an old woman who, it was probably allergies or she got something in her nose, and he called her a bitch in the middle of a hospital.
Hey, people are losing their minds worse than that. Thank God that's all that happened. Well, there's a couple of things. First, I wanted to say this. I thank you for what you're doing, because there are so many, and I've been without a car in times for different reasons over the last several years, and had to use Uber. You're doing a great service, and obviously you're putting yourself like these hospital workers and grocery store people and, many others on the front lines, and they're still dealing with things. You're putting yourself at risk. So I'm grateful for people like you. And I know that without what you do with Uber and the people with Lyft, that doctor's appointments, grocery stores, whatever, Uber Eats, etc., would be able to get their stuff. So I thank you for that. But you mentioned you've been talking to people. What has been kind of the overlying term and feeling of a lot of your, I'm not trying to say characterize all your passengers. You had tons of different kind of people, but what would you say is the general feeling for people that you're in your car right now?
I could tell within the last 4 or 5 weeks, things are a lot different than before, because people's spirits are just down. First of all, on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night, people are oftentimes more excited because they're going to go out and hang out with friends. There's none of that now. Right. Nobody's getting in their car with their significant other or about to go down to a game or a club. That stuff is gone. But people get in my car and they're just, a lot of them have their mask on and their gloves on, and like 90% of the time the conversation turns to coronavirus, and they're talking to me like, when do you think this is going to end? And, hey, I see that the governor extended to April 30th. So you think we'll be good on May 1st? I'm like, no, we're probably going to have to go into June. But it's people's spirits are down. They want it to be over. They know that we have to go through this process, but it's not fun. And having to not see family members, having to not see friends, it's not a good experience. I haven't seen my parents in a couple of months. They fortunately have a place in Arizona because they're retired.
Smart.
But they were supposed to be coming back this week, and I had to tell them about a month ago, don't come back. You own your place in Arizona. Wait until this stuff clears. We're looking like one of the epicenters. And then finally, they decided to push it back into mid-May. And then last week, they pushed it back into mid-June. But, not everybody has that situation. I mean, I want to stay away from my parents because I'm a healthy 35-year-old, so I could already have the coronavirus and be an asymptomatic carrier. But there are other people. I mean, I was talking to this one person who worked at I think it was a dialysis clinic. And she told me that she lived in the house that I picked her up from with her daughter and her grandmother. And I said, whoa, that's not safe, because if you get coronavirus, you could be taking that home to your grandmother and getting her sick. You need to ship her out or take her somewhere else, some other relative or something else, because it's not safe there. But then, when she started telling me her story, she didn't really have a choice, because they had those 3 generations in that home because they didn't have the resources. They didn't have the means to just put her or to have her and her daughter go somewhere else. It was the most financially feasible way for them to live. So they just have to hope and pray that she doesn't get the coronavirus at work or from anywhere else, from me as a driver. Right. She said that when she gets home every day, she has to take off her clothes and she goes and steps right into the shower before she spends time with anybody else. And the grandmother can't be in the same room with them. So that's the best they can do. But it's not the best scenario. It's just not everybody has the same ability to completely separate themselves from everybody else because of their financial situations.
Yeah, we're in unprecedented times right now, and I'm glad that your parents are staying safe. And obviously, all these. I have to report this because we haven't been on a couple days, and we've seen the Easter holiday Passovers going on. I know Dave and I celebrate Passover. You celebrate Easter. In the last few days, 2 people that I know, not like close friends, but definitely close friends of, or relatives of my close friends, have died. And it's not like people don't realize that it's serious anymore. Like there's still some, I think, and I won't spend energy on, being frustrated about that. But I think we all people with reasonable, brains and smarts right now know how serious this is, and that it's something that we all have to get through together. We know that it's not easy. We know that it's frustrating. And obviously we're 3 sports guys. And I'll get into that aspect of it in a second here with David and you, Brian, as well. But it's about, the whole hashtag in this together and, staying safe to keep the others safe. And, the doctors and the nurses will say, we're here for you. Stay home for us. It really is this communal thing, not just here. Like 9/11 was terrible. Other events throughout the bombings were terrible, but that was in one certain area. Yeah, it affected a country and a people and all that stuff. This is everywhere in the world. So we've got to be there as a unified global community. And if we do that, we're going to slow the spread. We're going to have the ability to slowly open certain things back up in different stages. And eventually, for people like us, get back to sports. Before I get to Brian's feelings on this, Dave, the last few days, what they've been like for you with the holidays, Passover and Easter, but also, your feelings on, we've talked about this on the task force a lot, about what it's going to take to keep this spread slow, but also eventually be able to go out there and golf, to go to a game, or, to see your parents, like Brian said he hasn't seen us in a couple months. It's a whiles away, but we can start thinking about what it's going to take to do that, I think, Dave.
Well, first, I have a couple questions for Brian. Number one, driving the people around?
No, I do not have a mask. I don't have gloves. I don't know where to get them. I'm not trying to seek them out.
I get you some gloves.
I'm not trying to be unsafe.
If you want some.
But, I have gloves, but they're not medical gloves. They're just gloves for being out in cold weather. But no, I don't have that. I have heard from some of my riders that there are.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Taxi cab, and there's no way I'm doing that. No way I'm doing that.
What is the weirdest place that you've had to take someone since the coronavirus has begun?
The weirdest place?
Yeah, like if somebody had to go somewhere
to like an arcade that's not open, or
it's
like a park at 3 in the morning.
Has it just been like some random place that someone had to go to?
No, with the coronavirus pandemic out there now, the types of locations I'm taking people to. It's either their home, to the grocery store,
right.
Or to Amazon. I mean, I take so many Amazon employees to the warehouses in Sterling Heights, Brownstown, Romulus, Hazel Park. You know, I pick up people and take them to restaurants too, the restaurant employees. Yeah. But it's any one of 4 or 5 different types of locations. So there's really nothing all that weird. I mean, there have been times when I've taken people to houses where they get to the house and they stand at the door and, you know, there's an exchange, so I can assume that they're getting drugs. But you know,
hey, Brian, you told me some great,
especially based on the type of.
You told me some stories about some weird possible drug deals. Happens all the time. # Uber stories.
Yeah.
All right, Dave.
Actually, I've got time for one more story.
Yeah, so say that for 1 second. I want to get Dave in here quickly. Dave, okay. My question to you again about how you've been, but also about what it's going to take in your estimation. You know, to be able to open things up slowly down the road, whatever that is. Not May 1st, by the way.
I think, you know, I think at the green light to open, I think it'll be a slow open. I think it won't be just like we're going to flip a light switch and everything's going to be good again. And I think we have to do that, you know, to avoid maybe potential reinfection. There's people that say this is going to come back in the fall again, and it's going to be like the flu where it has, you know, different phases that come and go. So I think the most important thing is, besides the testing, is also the antibody testing that's coming out. So I think that if we can find out who has had it, and then if they're immune to it, and once we find that out, then those people can go back to work, and we can start to kind of, you know, grow back, get the economy going again. And because there are a lot of people that are not happy that, you know, you can't play golf. And there are a lot of people that, you know, you can't go buy seeds, you can't go buy paint, and a lot of the restrictions that the governor has put in place for the foreseeable future. So
yeah, no,
we'll see what happens.
It's a crazy time. Brian, yeah, before you get to your Uber story, so kind of do this together as a one piece here, if you will. A 1 segment special. What do you think about, you know, how has it been for you without sports? Because obviously we know we're all 3 huge sports fans. And how soon you think they might come back? And then I can hear Uber stories from you all day. So get me another one of those.
Well, without sports, it's tough for us because I mean, I know that you like to watch a lot of TV and things like that, and you like to binge watch shows. I mean, I usually don't have a whole lot of time for that because I'm either typically getting ready for shows or I'm Ubering. And, you know, as a habit for someone who likes sports, at 7 or 8 o'clock, what do? You turn on the game. What the game is, it doesn't matter. It could be a local game, Red Wings, Tigers, Pistons. It could be a national TV game. You could be watching it actively. You could be watching it passively in the background. But at 7 o'clock or at latest by 8 o'clock, you turn on the game. And now there is the game to talk about. I mean, there's really not much of a reason to watch SportsCenter right now because I turn on SportsCenter and I give them credit. They're trying to find interesting things to fill time with. But when I watch an episode of SportsCenter on Monday morning and the top story is horse racing, like competitive farm animals, not interested in competitive farm animals. And then the second story is iRacing. You know, NASCAR racers playing video games. And then after that, you got Scott Van Pelt interviewing the winner of a NASCAR video game. Like, not interested in that whatsoever. It's really frustrating as someone who's one of their top hobbies is watching and talking about sports.
What do you think as far as, because I've said this many times, and Dave has given his piece as well, just to kind of briefly go over where I'm at. I don't think we're going to have any kind of serious sports, definitely with fans for a long time, but with no fans until we have a major handle on things. Testing is in a much different place, and we have completely slowed the spread. But the problem is once someone tests positive at a unique site for Major League Baseball, the 2 spring training sites they've talked about, or an NBA all-inclusive tournament in Vegas, or hockey in North Dakota, is they're going to have to shut it down again. So I don't see sports coming back, at least hockey, basketball, baseball, those kind of things. For a while, you mentioned horse racing is having kind of a renaissance right now, Chap. Like I'm watching it right now. And they're doing that with no fans, and it's part of the agriculture business, because if you shut down horse racing, horses could die. So that's why it's open at certain places. Some tracks like Golden Gate and others in California and other places have shut down. But I think it's going to be a long time. And I'll say this, if you haven't seen it yet, guys. I know Dave has. I don't know if you haven't seen it, Brian. I saw it for the first time last night. CBS did this incredible commercial, the hashtag In This Together, with all these different great moments, NCAA basketball tournament, Mahomes in the AFC title game, all these different great sports moments, then empty stadiums. And they said, listen, I'm getting chills talking about it. If you think you're alone, you're not. And that when sports comes back, it'll be just as great as they've ever been. We'll be more grateful for them. And it's just a beautiful ad about how right now it's more important to save lives. And I think, watch that. It's on my Twitter at Dan Leach 97.1, and it's all over the place. But Brian, what do you think when it comes to, by the way, Taylor Phillips in the chat. Hello, Taylor, and some others. So we all appreciate that. If you have any questions for me, Chap, please ask them. What do you think as far as when sports should come back, when they are going to come back?
I have no idea when it's going to come back. I mean, it should come back when, like you said, this looks like it's completely under control. I mean, certainly I don't think anybody should expect that on May 1st we're going to have sports just because the current ban is going through April 30th. Right. When I hear about what Major League Baseball is considering, half the teams in Arizona, half in Florida, or when I hear about what the NBA is considering, it really is irrelevant. I get that they have to brainstorm and things like that, but it's irrelevant for two reasons. First of all, none of this is going to happen until the numbers drop significantly, and we don't know when that is. Baseball can talk about a grapefruit league and an Arizona league, but is that going to start on May 1st, June 1st, August 1st? Is it not going to start until next year because we still don't have this under control until 2021? Right. So that's the first reason. And then second of all, by the time we have it under control, they might have to come up with 2 or 3 other contingency plans because having all the teams in the NBA in like 1 square mile or having all these different spring training things might not be feasible or the right thing to do. So I glance at the stories and I just move on because I think it's so far down the line and they're so wild that it's irrelevant. If we get to a point where we can say with certainty that within a month we can start seeing sports, then I'll start taking this stuff more seriously. But right now, I mean, we're sitting here on April 14th. We know on May 14th we're not going to have any sports. So it really isn't all that relevant to me, unfortunately.
No, and I get it. And we don't want to have another Rudy Gobert moment. I was at that game, at the Little Caesars Arena Pistons game against the Jazz, where I was like 2 feet from him during warm-ups. And I thought, who knew? At that point, I was still trying to learn everything about the virus and how you could get it and how contagious it was. And I quarantined for 14 days. Who knows? You can't have that happen again. All right, before we get into a Dan Leach one-on-one starring Brian Chapman, Brian, I know you have tons of these, but give us that other Uber story.
Oh, yeah, and it kind of goes to show you this story, how concerned people are about the coronavirus, because I picked up this woman in Pontiac, and I drove her to this other place in Pontiac, and this is about a month ago, so I think it was right around the time we had closed down the restaurants, and I think it might have been the first week of the stay-at-home order in Michigan. So I picked her up from her house in Pontiac, and I drove her like 2 miles away to somebody else's house, and I had to wait for her to come out to take her back. And on the way back, she started talking about the coronavirus and how she wouldn't want to go to the hospital right now because she could get sick. And I said, yeah, but if you're really sick, you still need to go to the hospital. And she said, well, I've been having chest pains, but I don't want to go because I don't want that virus. I was like, chest pains aren't normal. You need to go to the hospital right away. And she said, "Oh yeah, that's what my mom's been saying, and she has a medical degree." I was like, "Wait a second, she's a doctor, and she's your mom, and you're not listening to her?" And she said, "Yeah, I don't want to get that coronavirus." I was like, and she said, "I don't think that they're cleaning the hospitals well enough, so I could go in there for some heart situation and I could get the coronavirus. And the doctors have already told me that I need some other operation, like a stent or something." I was like, "And you're having chest pains? You need to go to the hospital right now." And then she proceeds to tell me that that she has already had a massive heart attack. I was like, what? She said, yeah, she's had 3 total heart attacks.
Jesus.
Her first massive heart attack was at age 24, and now she's 28 years old. I was like, wait a second. You've had 3 heart attacks, so you know you're at risk. The doctors say that you need to go get some other operation, and you're feeling chest pains, and you don't want to go to the hospital. You need to, like, right when I drop you off, get another Uber and go straight to the hospital. And then, she starts to cry a little bit. She's like, yeah, I know. And I was like, all right, think about this. Name one person besides yourself who would tell you it's a good idea to not go to the hospital. And she just paused for a second.
Wow.
And she couldn't name anyone. I was like, you need to go. She's like, all right, I promise you I'll go. I was like, look, I can't hold you accountable. You could just say this to me,
right,
just like you've been saying to your mom you're going to go to the hospital and haven't been going. I can't hold you accountable. You need to go. She's like, oh, no, I'll go. I just got to wait for my sister to get home from work so she can watch my kids. I'm going to go. I was like, I sure hope you do. But it just goes to show you how terrified people are of the coronavirus if they have a situation like this and they're more concerned about the coronavirus than their heart issue. I mean, I told her, you won't have to worry about getting the coronavirus if you suffer another heart attack and you die. And I was that blunt with her. No,
it's great.
So hopefully
I hope so too. It's a great point. It's like people, fears play into things and you're not necessarily thinking straight. I just hope that everyone out there, we say this on every show that we do, we appreciate everyone watching, whether you're someone younger or older or whatever, that you preach that to your family members that if you need to get help, get it. If you're scared about asking for help, please ask. If you don't know about certain things, find out the answers because we all got to stay safe. We all got to stay informed. Like, I'm not necessarily enjoying watching every, daily coronavirus press briefing because they're not always coronavirus press briefings, but I'm trying to watch, all of them because I want to be informed and I read and I stay up all night sometimes to keep myself informed. But it's as broad as that or as minute as finding out a way to apply for unemployment or go to the hospital, whatever it is. So please stay safe. All right, let's have some fun with this. Brian, you and I have done these on our shows in the past, but this time we'll do it with Dave Rieger in the driver's seat. It's a Dan Leach one-on-one starring Brian Chapman. Brian Chapman, you'll go first. Beat Chap up. Question number 1, Dave.
Hopefully I can read my writing. This kind of goes back to what Brian talked about a little bit earlier. So Kyle Larson, the NASCAR driver, he was fired from Chip Ganassi Racing today after being suspended for a racial slur that he used during a virtual race this past weekend. So I know that you have been playing some online games with my brother Jeffrey. The show.
RBI Baseball 20.
RBI Baseball. Have you ever found yourself in getting into a tough situation? Have you ever said anything online during a game or a virtual situation with the computer or the PlayStation, Xbox, whatever?
Like a racial slur or something like that?
Not necessarily racial, but maybe you had a rage quit, said
maybe
something. Maybe
you were playing as a female and you were chauvinist.
Maybe you were playing as a friend, somebody, and you said something that you just wanted to take back.
Well, I can tell you in terms of online gaming, the answer is absolutely not, because I just got the PlayStation Network package a couple of weeks ago because I was hoping to play your brother Jeff on a regular basis, maybe 3-4 times a week at about 7 or 8 o'clock so the people that were missing Tigers games could watch us play. But he's either been so busy or he's talking about, my wife wants me to do this or my daughter wants me to do this. We played twice.
Who won, by the way? Chapman, who won?
That. I blew him out in the first game, and then he won the second game late in the game because Joe Jimenez pitched the final 6 2/3 innings.
What was Todd Jones? Todd Jones' closer
said nothing. No, he had Joe Jimenez throw this final 6 2/3 innings by mistake. He didn't realize that he subbed him in the game. He just left him in there, and I couldn't do anything with him with the Royals.
That sounds like Riggs. For me, Dave, I'll tell you this. I don't really play. I play games, but I don't really play the connected online stuff that much. I have in the past. I've been invited to multiple Madden Leagues by Ryan Woolley and some others, but I never really came to fruition. But I will say that a friend of mine is a huge gamer, and I was playing Call of Duty, full Modern Warfare, whatever it was, and we were on the headset. there ended up being like an 11-year-old kid that was playing, and I didn't realize he was 11. And I was saying some bad words. Nothing like, I would never say anything racist or, like that bad. But like I was swearing and saying very inappropriate things for an 11-year-old. So that's my one experience with online gaming in a headset. I just thought the gaming chair and the online headset were so cool. I needed to make sure the kids weren't around, which unfortunately, Dave, that's like your brother, Jeff Rieger, the noble Jeff Rieger. He oftentimes has thrown golf clubs and sworn on the golf course when children were around. So I've had to learn from him making those mistakes. All right, question number 2.
There have been a lot of sporting events that have been postponed or canceled, obviously, since the start of the coronavirus. Today, the Tour de France was postponed. And my question for Brian is, has anybody watched the Tour de France since the Lance Armstrong days? And are you devastated by the fact that you cannot watch the Tour de France?
He's a big cycling guy. I know this firsthand. We've done many segments on the Chapman Leach experience about cycling. Go ahead, Leach.
Am I devastated that I can't see a bunch of skinny spandex-wearing guys driving bikes around France? No, absolutely not. The most I ever watched of the Tour de France was highlights on SportsCenter. But no, I'm not devastated and I'm not surprised. All right,
now this might be surprising to some. I'm not as into it as I have been in years past. But going back to when I was a kid, Greg LeMond, famed American Greg LeMond, I obviously was a huge Lance guy, 7 in a row, even though he cheated. Tyler Hamilton, who got screwed in the 60-minute interview. I love the Tour de France. So I'm disappointed, not as much as I would have been 10, 15 years ago before all the fraud and the nonsense that's happened in the Tour de France, all the cheating. But it's a beautiful event for France. I've had friends that have studied in France. My parents have been there. I've had many friends that have traveled there to see the Tour de France. So it's a huge event in the countryside and all through France. The Arc de Triomphe, the final run, the time trials. It's a beautiful event, one of the great sporting events in the world. So I'm sad for them, but personally, pre-Lance Armstrong, I'd be very upset. Post-Lance Armstrong, not so much. Question 3, Dave Rieger.
Well, why am I not surprised that Dan knows so much about the Tour de France?
I know everything. I know tons about everything.
Question 3 for Brian. Christian McCaffrey from the Carolina Panthers is about to sign an extension to make him the highest paid.
David Caputo was out. He called Christian McCaffrey. Just say that.
Oh, okay. Well, he's about to become the highest paid running back with this extension. So, Brian, number 1, is he worth all that money? And number 2, in the state that the NFL, the way that it's a passing game these days, is it smart to invest so much money in a running back?
Dave, great question so far. Go ahead, BJ.
I think he is. I mean, if you look at the way things typically go when it comes to contracts, if you are one of the top 5 or so in your position group, and you're the next to get a free agent contract, then you're going to be the highest paid of all time. And when you look at his ability as a running back to rush and his ability in the passing game, I think that it makes sense for him to become the highest paid running back, at least until Saquon gets his deal.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this. I think, Brian, you bring up a great point. Running backs that's why, like, Lions fans, we're going to get to the Lions after the one-on-one and with the draft, which is like almost a week away. Running backs aren't financially as important to put a ton of money because they don't last as long. I mean, obviously certain guys do, but most don't. And their average lifespan in the NFL as like a starting running back is like 3 years, something like that, 2.5. But I'll put it this way. I'm a big fantasy player. Dave, I know you played fantasy. Chapman, I know you have, or at least daily at some point. Christian McCaffrey I almost called him McCaffrey. He is a fantasy stalwart. One of the great fantasy running backs or players ever because he's so valuable out of the backfield. He can catch passes. He can run. He can score touchdowns. He does everything. So if there's one guy that's worth that kind of money, and I know, Brian, you talked about Saquon Barkley, who's similar in that sense, passes out of the backfield, tons of yardage, tons of touchdowns. It's McCaffrey, but if you had the ability to put money in an offensive lineman that could start for you for 10 years, or even a receiver and obviously a quarterback, you put it there first. You try to go running back by committee because these guys get hurt over and over again. But if there's one guy I'd spend that kind of money on Carolina or any team, it's McCaffrey. He's that valuable. All right, question 4, Dave Arena.
Question 4. So Logan's Roadhouse, they closed like 261 locations today, and they fired all their furloughed employees. Like the only one, I think the only ones that are still open are in North Carolina or South Carolina or whatever. Brian, is there one restaurant franchise that you absolutely cannot do without?
I love it. Great question. Dave, this is your best one-on-one yet.
One restaurant franchise. I can tell you this. For Lent, I gave up restaurants, so I haven't been to a restaurant in the last 40 days, and since Easter, I haven't been to one either. But the first one that I plan to go to will probably either be this Thursday or Friday, and that's going to be Five Guys. I love their burgers there. I love their Cajun fries. I always get the burger with the Cajun fries, and they give you so much. I mean, they give you a little cup, but then they throw a whole bunch of additional fries in there. They make the burgers fresh in front of you. You can put any topping you want on top of it, and it's free. So I would say I do love the Five Guys franchise, and I like Benihana as well because I love I hate to cook. Yeah. That's my least favorite household chore is cooking. I'd rather vacuum, clean toilets, do laundry. I hate cooking, but I will not watch a cooking show on TV like the Food Network. Don't know, never watch it. But I do like watching them make the food at Benihana.
Hey, you stole mine, and Brian. Hey, Brian likes to give me a hard time about I'm out of shape and trying to get back into it now. I mean, chicken.
You are.
But listen, 8-9 pounds already. Walks every day, salads, chicken, asparagus.
Down to 330 pounds.
Don't worry, save the Dan Leach impersonation of the Yankees. We're going to have a definite moment for that. People love your Dan Leach. But no, it's Benihana. Like I'm trying to, listen, do I like Taco Bell? Do I like Wendy's? Do I like Jimmy John's or Jersey Mike's? Sure. But if I had to pick one that would devastate me the most, it's Benihana. Dave knows this, Brian, I think you do too. I have birthday parties there. I love hibachi. I love sushi. So it's all inclusive. I love the little chopping show and the little guy that pees on, the oil and, the
peas on the oil.
No, the guy he pees on the fire to keep the fire down. The chefs have the little guy, and then there's the choo-choo train, and they light everything on fire. It's the best.
I've never heard of somebody peeing on the food. He's in Benihana.
He's not really peeing.
What are you
He's like
talking
a little
about?
Chinese guy, and the chef squirts him, and it puts the fire. It's for the kids.
At the Benihana I go to, they don't urinate on the food.
Right. Let's hit it out of the park as we always do with question 5, Dave Arena.
Question number 5. So there was a man in Indiana went to check his bank account looking for a stimulus check of $1,700, and he found that he had a balance of $8 million.
Whoa!
Now by Monday, the money was gone, but he had got his stimulus check. So Brian, have you ever had a bank error of that magnitude in your lifetime?
No.
I wish.
No. I think we all wish. I have heard that when people have those bank errors, they go out and they spend it, and then the bank figures out what happened, and then they have to pay all that money back. So they buy Jaguars, they buy vacations, they buy houses, and then all of a sudden they've got no money to pay it back because they've been spending everything. So, I mean, as tempting as it would be to just hoard the money and spend it, you would have to return that right away because the only thing worse than being told you have $8 million and losing $8 million is being $8 million in debt.
Yes, that's true. For me, about 5 years ago, I got a loan from my credit union. I think the loan was for $2,800, and for like about 2 hours, I had double the money in my account. I didn't touch it. I actually called and said, "What is going on here?" They had released double the loan amount for whatever reason. So that's the closest I ever came to that. But whenever you hear those stories, you're like, what would I do if I had $1 million? First off, if after hours, which happens a lot, it seems like, you can't pull out $1 million from the bank, for the ATM. I guess you can try to transfer it, but no, you don't want to spend that money. You're going to be responsible for it. You can, I guess, technically go to jail if they want to physically, not physically, but prosecute you. So it'd be great if it happened and I could keep the money, but I know that we can't. So That's the closest I ever came when I called, and the double the money went right back, and we got single the money. Dave, that's your finest one-on-one yet. Very good questions. I do want to ask you, Dave, what is the franchise for you that would devastate you the most if it closed? My guess is Subway, but you'd also be happy because you often get your great mother Subway, and that way you don't have to get her Subway anymore.
I would be. No offense to Subway, I would be fine if Subway left. No offense, I'd be upset for my mom, but because she loves it. But I would say that probably it would be Jersey Mike's.
Yeah, Jersey Mike's
I really enjoy Jersey Mike's. I like their subs; they make them fresh, kind of like the Five Guys makes the burgers fresh. And I would say I'd be very devastated if Jersey Mike's went away.
All right.
Speaking of your mom, Dan, are you devastated that you're not able to date Rieger's mom anymore? Because I know that you were trying to hit on her, and she was like, "No."
Oh, come on, sexy.
I wasn't trying to hit on her. Freda Rieger is a wonderful lady.
Don't forget about Feld's mom, too.
She's had to put up with Dave and especially Chap and the Cloud Prince. I have made it after Ayla, which is Eric, the youngest, fifth Beatle Rieger's daughter, and Olive, which is Jeff and Allison's daughter. I've made it to third overall on the Rieger pecking order. It's me, then Dave, then Eric, then Jeff is last. So we all know that. But I've never tried to date her. It's been very tough, though.
You're just bitter because she ghosted you.
Yeah, well, I texted her a few times. She never responded. I was very upset. I gave her Subway coupons. No thank you note. It's terrible. Love the phrase.
She ghosted you, and you're pissed off about it.
It's devastating. I pour my heart out the phrase. Chap, I wanted to talk to you about some Lions here, and we'll get Dave in the mix as well. Programming note, a week from Thursday is the NFL draft, virtual draft. A week from tomorrow, which is Wednesday, the 22nd, the day before the draft, the night before the draft, our good friend Dave Burkett, the best in the business, Lions beat writer for Freep.com. He will be on the task force to break it all down the night before the draft. So looking forward to that. That just confirmed. But Chap, you have always been a lot more fair. Well, I don't want to say fair. You've been very unfair at times, but you've been much more realistic about the Lions than I have. So
doesn't take much.
I'm a Lions guy. Forward down the field. Where are you at with the Lions and this draft? I saw that ESPN, I think it was Bill Barnwell, did a every team trade possibility. You had the Lions trading with the Chargers for their sixth pick. They would get a second rounder, Hunter Henry. Lions would give them, I'm forgetting, it wasn't Hawk. I'm forgetting the other tight end the Lions would give them. But where are you at with the Lions in the draft? What should they do? What do you think they will do with 3 in the first round?
Well, I think the best case scenario would be to trade down. If they could trade down and get whether it's a 5th pick or the 8th pick and just accumulate more picks, that'd be the best case scenario. And if I was Martha Ford, that elderly woman, I would say I would like picks to come back for the year 2021. But that's just because I don't trust Bob Quinn to make good draft picks. I mean, the one difficult part about this is you say, hey, go accumulate more picks. And it's like, all right, great. So he's going to accumulate another Tease Tabor or, another TJ Hawkinson or some other Bob Quinn typical bust. I think that, I don't think that Quinn's going to be back next year. I don't think Patricia's going to be back next year. So I would like to see the new GM have a stockpile of picks to use. But I think that the most important thing about the draft, which is not going to be, from a Lions slappy point of view, is that there's no reason to be excited. Like, there's no reason, because if you are like most people were at the end of the 2019 season, you say, you know what, they went 3-12-1, which is one game off of my prediction of 4-11.
And it's one of the few years you have not picked a tie. You've done that many times.
No, I did pick a tie.
Wait, you did this year?
I did pick a tie. Yeah, I picked them to go 4-11.
Tell everyone the truth. How many of the last 7 years have you picked the Lions to have a tie? 5?
I've picked them to have a tie in the last 5 years, 3 out. So I was right about it this year.
Oh, God.
I digress. At the end of the year, when they lost 9 in a row, 80-90% of Lions fans said, you know what, this isn't working out. Quinn and Patricia are not working out. Therefore, they should be fired. And the reason people thought that is because of all that it took for them to go from 9-7 to 6-10 to 3-12-1. So if you have that mindset, then there's no reason to sit here and be excited about the bad picks that you assume he's going to take. Because if you think he's going to make great picks in the draft, then you would not have said back in December or January, these guys need to go. So, I get that the draft is supposed to be an exciting time of the year. I get that when you have the third pick, that it's supposed to be very exciting. But if you're honest as a Lions fan, if you wanted Quinn and Patricia out, you can't be excited because you know they're going to make more bad moves that caused you to want them out in the first place. So with that being said, first choice would be to trade down. And if you can't do that, then my pick would be between Derek Brown and Jeff Okudah. I think that they obviously need a lot of help on defense. Yeah. They lost their two starting defensive tackles. They replaced them with a couple of mediocre bums. They don't have a big-time playmaker there. And Derek Brown is a guy that I've been a big fan of for months. If they can get a big-time athlete like that who can plug up the hole a little bit, but is certainly more mobile than average D tackle, a guy that I think could last into the next system once these guys are out, he'd be a great pick. And then they traded away Slay for nothing. They bring in Trufant. They got Oruwariye, but they don't have a big-time corner. I would go with one of those two, and I would avoid Tua like the play.
I'm shocked that you haven't repped Oruwariye, your former Penn State Nittany line, any better. I like him. I think he was a very solid pick in the 5th round. We'll see what happens. I think Will Harris was a solid pick, the safety out of BC in the 3rd round. Riggs, you work at the Lions flagship. You're speaking of Slappy Central. Have you changed your feelings on the Lions at number 3? What are you hearing around the hallways, which are obviously mainly non-existent right now at WJR?
I'm not hearing anything around the hallways because there's nobody there, but like one or two at a time. So there's nobody. So there's nobody there. But obviously, I'm more concerned with pick 15 than I am with the Lions number 3.
No one cares about the Broncos, but what do you want the Lions to do?
But they're going to take Okudah. I saw him on ESPN today. They were interviewing him. So they need to replace Slay, and they need and I think he's a really talented corner, and they need to get the defense. First of all, if you're going to get the defensive players first, and then you might want to throw in a blitz or two in your package, to maybe rush the opposing quarterback. But everybody's going to say that last year was Matt Stafford getting hurt, and it probably was. I don't know if they would have lost as many games, but I still didn't think that they were going to make the playoffs or do anything special. And as we come toward the Lions Super Bowl, which is the draft, it seems every year.
Stop it.
It's always a disappointment. It's been a disappointment for as long as I can remember.
Yes.
Nobody pans out. It doesn't matter if you trade down.
It's because you're a Broncos, Stevie.
Where they are.
No, it's because of the truth.
It doesn't matter about being a Broncos fan. It never works out for them. It always is. Okay, we saw totally that T.J. Hawkinson was going to be this great we know who got the better tight end.
Tight ends break out in year 2.
We know.
They break out.
Who got the better tight end.
Hawkinson's going to be better than Noah Fant. Noah Fant's number 10.
Obviously not.
Tight ends break out year 2.
So, I mean, whatever. Anyway, I think that you just go back
of Tabor too. So.
As far back as you want to go with this organization. All right. And I'm not one of those people who says they're not going to win until the Fords sell. The Fords could sell the team. They still would lose.
Stupid.
It doesn't matter. The team is cursed.
All right.
It's just it's SOL. I mean, it's just the way it has always been. Same old Lions. It's always been just a dumpster fire of a team. Unfortunately, I'm
I
sorry,
almost wore my
Dan.
Stafford goat shirt, by the way.
I know it's a hole in your heart that will never get filled.
Yes, it will.
You're never going to see a parade. They're never going to win a Super Bowl. Just like you thought Tiger Woods wasn't going to win a major.
It was a lifetime bet.
I'm
going to throw myself. Hey, if they don't, right? I'm going to throw myself a parade.
Forget about it.
I'm going to throw myself a parade just for the fun of it. All right.
That's all you're ever going to get from that team.
We got a few things before we wrap up here. I'll just say what I've said in the past. You wanted to create that bidding war for Tua. It's not happening. Tua's got multiple injury concerns. The Lions probably stick at 3. Draft Okudah, who I love. I like Simmons too, but I wanted that trade down. Maybe something happens. Maybe the Chargers or the Raiders or someone is crazy. I don't want to say crazy enough, but takes that chance on a very, I don't want to say damaged goods, but could be damaged goods with Tua Tagovailoa. And we'll see. But Okudah and Simmons are the two targets. Chappie, you mentioned Derek Brown. I've loved him. He was my number one pick from like before everything started getting going with, all the Tua stuff. I love Derek Brown. He's a wrecking ball. I like Josh Allen last year, but he's a wrecking ball from Auburn. So we'll see what happens with the Lions at 3. We'll discuss it, obviously, of course, over the next week and a day until round number 1. All right, before we get into
Hold on a second. Let me ask you a question.
Sure, Chap.
Are you just saying that you don't want the Lions to draft Tua Tagovailoa because you're a big Stafford slappy? We all know that you are one of his biggest 4 or 5 fans, and every single year when they talk about should the Lions draft a replacement, and you just talked about how you got this nice Stafford T-shirt. How much of that is playing into your decision? Because obviously that's not playing into my decision to not want the Lions to draft him at all.
It's a great question. And I've said I haven't been on the air in a while, so I haven't said this on the air, but I've said this on the show. This is where I'm at. Stafford, I still believe, is a very, very good, better than average, above average quarterback. But if it was coming down to the Lions drafting Joe Burrow or not, I 100% would be in. I love Tua. I think Tua's got a huge upside, but he's not Mahomes. He's not Andrew Luck. He's got some injury concerns. And to draft a guy that's your future, yes, is there a chance he's going to be great? Of course. But if it was Burrow, or even if you were down the trough further and you no pun intended, fell in love with Jordan Love, or you love Justin Herbert, that's one thing. At 3, I'm not taking Tua because what if he plays in the league for 2 years? If it was Burrow or one of those others further down the trough, I love Stafford. But I understand that the best scenario right now might be to be moving on from him in the next couple of years. You can't trade him now. Too much dead cat money. Probably can't trade him for a couple of years. But yes, I see the writing on the wall. I bet you he goes to a Dallas or he goes to a Jacksonville or he goes somewhere else and probably wins a Super Bowl. But this is a huge year for everyone. For him, for Quinn, for Patricia, for the whole franchise.
Well, real quickly, it's not a huge year. This is going to be another bad losing season. I know that this time of year, everyone always says it's going to be a huge year. Everyone knows that they're going to have a losing record. Is it going to be a bounce back year to 6-10 because Stafford is able to play a dozen games as opposed to just 7 or 8 games? Perhaps. But nobody thinks this is a big year. Nobody. It's going to be a bad year. It's going to be a failure of a year, period.
When I say big year,
I'm going to tell you right now, Dan, you do know that Tua will become some kind of, he's going to win like 2, 3, 4 Super Bowls.
I don't know, my friend.
You know that.
No.
I'll tell you this.
He's going to be out of the league at age
I'll tell you this.
You do know that.
I wish him the best.
He's going to be a generational quarterback.
Now, and I've said transcendent quarterbacks before. In a win-now situation, when I say big year, if the Lions are a playoff team, everyone's gone. And that could be Stafford as well. But I definitely believe that Tua has too many red flags to pick at number 3. Correct. That being said, he might be transcendent. But he's not Mahomes. He's not Luck. He's not injury-free, Dave.
When it comes to the Detroit Lions, what does win now mean?
Hold on, I need to see it.
The division.
Come on, 9. Come on, 9. Here comes the 9. And the 9 is going to
He's watching farm
just
animals.
get in. All right. I'll tell you, horse racing is it's a renaissance. But Dave,
like horse racing in Istanbul or something.
Dave, ask your question. Brian's got things he's got some work to get to.
It's a win now mantra there for the Lions this year,
yes.
Right? Okay, what is it? Is
playoffs.
It,
playoffs. Anything less than playoffs.
Okay. You say that every year.
I don't say.
And then when they don't make the playoffs, you say, "Whoa, let's get them next year."
No, listen.
Like, wait, I thought it was playoffs and bust.
Listen. It's not my edict. It's Sheila Ford Hamps. It's Martha, by extension, Martha Ford. If they're not a playoff team, fire them all.
They should be reasonably competitive for the playoffs.
We talk about the Ohio State bet with Chapman about the Lions.
Yes. I've given Brian too much love for that. It's been pinned to his Twitter for 3 years. I gave multiple shows where I'd say, I've been a Buckeye fan since I was a kid. I went to games with my dad.
You guys call that? What was the name of that bet?
The Geesall bet.
The grand extraordinary same old Lions bet of 2017.
That was one of the greatest bets I've ever made. I lost it, but I loved it because Chapman and I had eons of fun over that.
dumbest bet you could have ever made.
And he broke the bet many times.
I did break the bet.
I know.
I did a great job.
Are you kidding me?
All right, so
it was your Tiger Woods bet that you lost.
Yeah, what about the Tiger Woods bet you lost to me? Phil McCracken. How about that, man? Heads up, buddy. Heads up.
It was just a charity event.
It wasn't it was a charity. It was for what? Was it for like $10 million or something? Was it charity?
That's charity to those guys.
All right.
That's like pocket change.
All right, before we get into our exciting house item, Chapman's Leach impersonation and parting shots, I thought we'd have a lot of fun with this tonight. Brian Chapman is the favorite son of Penn State. There has never been a more famous alumni that's worked for 97.1 that's lived in Southfield than Brian Chapman. He's got the Penn. What is it? Who is that? Is that KJ? Who is that?
It's like Saquon.
Is that Sake?
Ding, ding, ding. Saquon Barkley.
I thought it was Kajana Carter. All right, so.
Oh.
We'll start. He was a bust. We'll start with Chappie. Chappie, the three favorite, doesn't mean any order, but for our task force top three, the three favorite Penn State alumni of your life, like whoever your three favorite alums are.
Okay, number one, I'll go with
Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley. Yeah, look, if you're a Penn State fan, if you're a Penn State alum, then obviously Penn State football plays a big part in your life. And Saquon Barkley is my all-time favorite Nittany Lion. I mean, there have been some other great ones like Derek Williams, who was unfortunately drafted by the same old Lions, like Darryl Clark, like Paul Pusluzny, like Dan Connor. I really didn't pay much attention before I got to Penn State football, before 2003.
Right.
But Saquon Barkley, my all-time favorite. I think that had it not been for two offensive linemen getting injured for the Michigan State and Ohio State games, that Penn State would have won at least one of those two games in his junior and final year, and then he would have won the Heisman Trophy. He was the best player in college that year, but didn't win it. But he was so exciting to watch, so much fun to see him do it all, both running the football, catching the football, that amazing play in the whiteout game against Michigan, where the first play of the game, he and Trace McSorley shifted, and it was like, what the heck's going on?
Gross.
He takes a snap, boom, 93 yards for the touchdown. Remembering highlights of that Iowa game where he had like 200 total yards, and he hurdled over a guy, got slammed in midair, kept his balance, and kept on going. I mean, Saquon, there's been a lot of great Nittany Lions over the years. Allen Robinson from Orchard Lake St. Mary's, who caught that great catch from Christian Hackenberg in the whiteout game against Michigan to set up the touchdown to send it into overtime. But Saquon Barkley, my all-time favorite Nittany Lion player. And then the other two are going to be friends of mine, Joey Galino and Derek Major. They're fellow class of 2007 grads with me, and they were the co-hosts of our NBA show when we were on Com Radio in college. It started off with me and Joey and another guy, Harold, for our first
My dad?
2 years. And then, what's that?
My dad, Harold, the great Harold Leach, Doc Leach.
No. Harold Hall, the wise old sage. I was Brian Chapman. I was a cold-hearted Brian Chapman.
Of course you were.
Harold was Harold Hall, the wise old sage. After 2 years, he quit, and then Derek came in. He transferred from Penn State Altoona. He was Derek Major, the New Yorker, because he had the biggest New York accent. Always wore a New York Yankees hat.
Hey, Dix Hills.
And what's that?
What are you from, Long Island? Where Dix Hills, Syosset?
No, he was from Brooklyn.
Oh, Brooklyn.
Yeah, and then there was Joey Galino, the historian, because he always brought up these random historical facts and things like that. But
there you go.
To this day, they're two of my best friends. So I would say Saquon Barkley, Joey Galino, the historian, and Derek Major, the New Yorker.
I love it. Great job by you, Dave. We got to go into the well here. And I wonder if you'll pick my dad, who graduated from Wayne State Tartar Med School. Dave Rieger, the pride of Wayne State. Now they were the Tartars. Now they're the Warriors, right? The Wayne State Warriors?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's correct. You kind of threw this at me like right before
I always do that on purpose. On purpose.
And I was like, wait a minute, Wayne State University favorite alumni. They've had some pretty famous people. Obviously, Dr. Leach gets number one. Obviously, I did not know that he graduated from Wayne State, but we'll give him number one. There's Dan Gilbert. He graduated from Wayne State. So,
I thought he went to Michigan State.
I think he probably went to both.
I think, did he drop out of Wayne State? He dropped out of somewhere, I thought.
He might have. Lily Tomlin, the
Lily
comedian.
Tomlin.
That's a good one. I'm looking. I had to look up quickly on Google famous people. Jeffrey Tambor.
Great actor.
Yeah, Tom Sizemore. I mean, you got some big names. We can put those in any order, but I did see that the guy who just passed away, Casey Kasem, of course.
Casey Kasem's
since he was
personal hero of mine.
A radio guy.
His daughter went to school with me in California.
Tim Meadows. But this gentleman, I thoroughly enjoyed his show. He just passed away recently. James Lipton.
Oh, the Actors Studio.
Inside the Actors Studio, yeah.
I got some note cards.
That was probably more than 3.
Yeah.
But
what are you, Caputo? You can't stick to the task at hand? I've got to
Unfortunately, no, because like I said, was not thoroughly prepared for favorite Wayne State University alumni.
No, it's funny, though. The reason I bring up Caputo, I love Pat. I've done many shows with Pat, so is 50. And like, let's say we were doing a topic where you're supposed to like name your favorite Wayne State alum, and you just name one, Pat would name like 16. By the way, I got an imaginary stack of note cards. I'm throwing them up to the sky for the great James Lipton. For me, of course, the pride of Eastern Michigan. Recently did a podcast with Greg Steiner, the sports information director. Ryan Woolley went there. Dennis Fithian went there. I thought about Judge Greg Mathis, who's fantastic. I thought about Law & Order's Dan Florek, who's amazing. I thought about former Transportation Secretary Rodney Slater, who got Bill Clinton to speak at my graduation, and I basically was feet away from Pres Clinton. But I'm going to go with 2 classmates and a legend. I'll start with the classmates. Charlie Batch was the first big guest I ever had on my radio show. Got me credentialed for the Detroit Lions when I was a freshman. He was a fantastic quarterback at Eastern Michigan and the starter for the Lions for a while. And won ring helped the Steelers win a ring by filling in for Big Ben. And of course, the legendary Earl Boykins, the biggest, littlest big man, played over a decade in the NBA. I believe he was an all-star once. I saw him hit basically a 3-quarter court shot to beat Toledo at Old Bowen Arena or Bowen Fieldhouse. It was a theory of basketball 101 with Earl Boykins. Used to make him crack up. Love that guy. Called all of his games as a student broadcaster on TV and radio. So I'll go with those 2 former classmates of mine. But I'll also go with the legend, a top 50 NBA player of all time, the Iceman cometh, George Gervin. There's my task force top 3. Great job by Chappie and Wayne State Tartar. Dave, what year?
I got to tell you, we were the Tartars when I was there.
What year did you graduate?
I was not the
96?
Warriors. I graduated in 95, and they were the Tartars at that point.
I love it.
So brush your teeth, and there you have some fish and chips. There you go.
All right, B-Chat, before we get into your parting shot, can you give everyone's been asking on Twitter and on the live chat, can you give them a Dan Leach impersonation? There's not many that have ever done it better.
Oh, crap. What am I?
Just do something on the Lions.
The Lions are going to draft Tua Tagovailoa, and he's going to be the worst player of all time because Matthew Stafford is a swizzle stick. I can guarantee Matthew Stafford is going to come back this year. He's going to go 60 touchdowns. 60 touchdowns. That's like the most in NFL history. He's not going to throw a single interception. His back is perfect.
Chapman,
the squat's told
your Leach impersonation are as good as they can, and I've loved it when you've done them during crosstalk, and then I've tried to do an impersonation of you doing an impersonation of me, which is the dumbest thing ever. Like,
the thing about your voice is that it's so raspy, and whenever you try to impersonate somebody else, you're really just impersonating yourself. Like, you'll try to impersonate me and be like,
"Hey, I'm Chapman, and I love Christian Hackenberg."
It's like, Leach, you sound like yourself.
Oh, no, I don't.
It's like, yes, you did. Leach the Lion.
Oh, I love you, Brian. I really do. And Dave knows this. I've talked to Dave about you many times. We've talked over the last several weeks. You're a great friend. We give each other a lot of grief for, in a good way. And I love you.
I think you call me every day.
Yeah. I mean, I've told Brian this before. Brian, you're a great guy. And it sucks that
And you are a third wave reporter.
Brian loves to troll me when I post stuff. He's like, "You're a terrible reporter," with a Trump picture. But Brian, I hope that both you and I are back on air soon. We'll have you on the task force again. Before we go, parting shots, and then we'll do our house item of the day. Actually, I'm sorry. Let's do our house item of the day. We'll start with the great Dave Rieger, who I know was very excited about this one. What do you got today, Reegs?
I found this down in the basement in a box. My dad, when he was alive, was a big fan of the the space exploration of NASA, and this is from the Danbury Mint. It's a coin that's connected to a necklace from, I think, the Apollo 17 mission, which I think might have been the last Apollo mission that went to the moon. So I found this little coin,
very cool,
and kind of neat.
All right, B Chap.
I bet it's worth. I bet it's worth about a. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I bet it's worth about negative.
I was gonna say, probably worth about as much as 2 rolls.
It's funny because you lead. It's gonna lead into my item in a second. That just was random. This was not planned. I didn't know what Dave was using today. All right, Brian, what do you got?
I've got what you see right behind me, and that is this picture.
Is that SpongeBob? Gonzo SpongeBob?
No. As a matter of fact, there's not really a name for this character. But when I first saw it, my cousin, as you can see right there, my cousin was the person who created that picture. She's an artist. She lives right now in Southern California, and she had she went to an art show in Ferndale. She drove all the way across the country. She was living in New Mexico at the time, to a Ferndale art show in like 2012 or 2013. And I came up to see her show, and I was like, "Oh, that picture's great. That's like a SpongeBob on drugs." She's like, "No, it's not." And she's like, "He's happy." I was like, "Look at him. He's got teeth like a Buckeye and everything else." And he was like, "No, it's a cute picture." And I was like, "I want that, but I don't have enough money for it." And then like 2 years later, my aunt, her mother, bought it for me for Christmas.
That is awesome.
It's like
that is awesome.
My favorite picture.
You guys can't see this, but I'll show it to the camera. And I said it's kind of in tune with Dave's. It's chilly today. Got a chance to go on a nice walk, and I put on the space coat. And I've had this thing since the menorah lighting ceremony. Dave, I think you were there, but your brother and Allison, his wife, were there. And I got it Black Friday from American Eagle. I think I got it for like $32 instead of $140. The space coat has become, Kenny Cowell's worn this, Dan Miller. The millions of people have tried, Mickey, they've tried the space coat on, and it's made them a better human. And boy, we need that right now more than ever. We need protection. So I have the space coat that hopefully won't have to be out that much longer as the weather gets warmer. Dave, let's start with you, your parting shot.
I will say that I usually end with the same statement every show. I want to thank Brian Chapman for coming on. It's good to see you. And everybody stay safe. Follow the directions, flatten the curve, wash your hands. Wear a mask if you have one, wear gloves. And as my favorite TV coach from Friday Night Lights always would say as he led the team out to play, clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose.
Love it. Beat Chap, parting shots.
Well, last week, Jim Harbaugh and Mel Tucker had an opportunity to take control of recruiting, at least early on when it comes to the 2020 season. And I think what we saw was the new king of state of Michigan recruiting put his crown back. And that's James Franklin. Because the twins from Cass Tech in Detroit, Kobe King and Caleb King, chose We Are Penn State over Wisconsin, Michigan, and others, and they didn't even consider Michigan State. And then the day before, I forget who it was, but there was a 4-star defensive back from Detroit. Is it Detroit or Oak Park?
Detroit.
And he chose We Are Penn State. If you look at the 24/7 rankings right now of the top 13 recruits in the state of Michigan, 3 have chosen Penn State. 1 has chosen Michigan. 1 has chosen Northwestern, the nerds from Northwestern. So,
like the Fighting Jam Sams.
And he actually
the Fighting Jam Sams.
That's right. Jamie's got to be happy about that. And actually, he goes to Country Day, which is my high school alma mater.
My dad's too.
And 0 have chosen Michigan State. But right now, the king of state of Michigan recruiting is James Franklin.
I'm not gonna refute it right now. I can't. Let's see how they play on the field. I'll just say this, Brian. I love you. You're a great friend. You've been there for me in many ways, as I will always be there for you. Dave, you know how I feel about you. And as I said, that CBS commercial about sports being away made me tear up yesterday because we miss it dearly, but we've got to sacrifice now to save as many as we can. Please stay safe. Listen to elders. Listen to the people that are smart enough to tell us what to do, the right people that are telling us what to do. Know that when we come back from this, it will be a new normal, it will be more special than it's ever been. We'll be more grateful to go to a restaurant, to go to a park, to go watch a baseball game. And I think that gratitude and just graciousness will be a very, very good thing. So, Brian, please stay safe. Keep doing the great things you're doing. Help people get to where they got to go. Hopefully we'll be on the air at some point together soon, maybe once every 4 years. So we're coming up in 2021, Brian. Dave, you stay safe as well. And until next time, believe in the dream, wash your hands, sanitize, spread love, not hate. And always know that you make a difference. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Task Force. As I mentioned, Dave Burkett coming up. We've got world-famous porn star Kenra Lust later this week. So, Brian, you've let off a huge week on the Task Force. Until next time, Dan Leach saying, so long. Believe in the dream.
We are Penn State.
Detroit.